Michael Lamprell, welcome to the Mentor, mate.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks very much. Or as we say to all of our cabin guests, welcome home.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's funny me saying welcome because you're not in my studio. I'm in your studio. I'm in one of your cabins.
Yeah.
And nice and cozy, I must add. We've got the fire going here, which our listeners can't or our watchers can't see or hear. They definitely can't hear the fire. But I can tell you I'm on the side of the fire, which is my preferred position to be. And it's a beauty, and I'm going to ask you about it a bit later. So you're the founder of CABN, and by the way, spelt CABN, very clever.
Thank you.
And there's more than one cabin. There's lots of cabins here. And I actually noticed some tent-style things down there, which I want to ask you about as well.
Yeah, safari tents.
Safari tents, yeah.
Yep.
Because I'm actually curious about those things myself and personal level. But let me just get a bit of background about you, if you don't mind, please, Michael. Have you always been doing retreats, or what would you call it? How do you best describe this? Give me your description. Where are we and what are we doing? And we're in the Barossa Valley. That's the first thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's awesome outside. Like, it's a bloody beautiful, crisp, clear, sunny, unbelievable day. But describe maybe where we are, what we're doing.
Sure. Well, yeah, as you mentioned, we're in the beautiful Barossa Valley, which is the home of some of the best wines in the world. And we're in Seppeltsfield, which is one of those magnificent palm-lined promenades that has a history all its own. We chose this property. We handpicked it, as we do with all of our properties, to make sure that we're aligned with all the principles of CABN. But this is a beautiful example of how we're creating. I guess in a sense, if I was to explain what this is to people in one sentence, it's that we're a nature hotel like no other.
Nature hotel. That's interesting. And you've got unbelievable. People won't be able to see it, although we're going to put some stuff up on the show and the show notes and the B-roll and the promos. That this place is not in the middle of. I wouldn't call it the bush. We're not quite the bush, but we sort of are in the country. So definitely the countryside. But it's also well structured, because when I was driving here, something I noticed was interesting is I saw these Phoenix palms or Canary Island date palms lining the streets. I mean, what the hell is that? That's obviously not a native thing. I mean, someone's gone to the trouble. Is it the government or the council, or who's done that?
It's a great story, Mark, and it's actually a legacy piece from the Seppelts family. So in World War II,
the wine family,
yes, yeah, which is the beautiful building structure across the road from us.
I saw it. I actually went in there this morning, and it's old, really old buildings. It looks like 100 odd years. I mean, what are we talking about historically here now?
Yeah. Well, plus,
Plus.
it's 150. But the family had a lot of immigrant employees that didn't have work during World War II. So instead of sending them on their way, they employed them and kept them on at their own expense. And one of the things they got them to do was to plant all along Seppeltsfield Road. So that was how they kept them busy, kept them employed, even though there was no income coming in themselves. And it's one of those, when I heard that story, and that to me is one of those legacy pieces, which is clearly, here well beyond the generations of that family and generations to come. And they're those little things that, have really helped shape a lot of my thinking around, what are you doing that creates legacy? And that's part of, what we're trying to do with CABN as well.
Like, I may have a little bit of knowledge about those Canary Island date palms or Phoenix palms. They've got lots of different names. But they're a beautiful looking palm, very statuesque, quite imposing to look at. And one thing I know about them, because what went through my mind is I thought, my God, who planted them all, these trees? There must be, I don't know, hundreds, maybe 1,000 of them at least.
Yeah.
And they grow very slowly. And I do know that if you were to buy one, let's say it was 10 meters tall. A lot of these are 10 meters tall, easy. If it was 10 meters tall, it will cost you about $2,000 a meter to buy one.
Yep.
So if you're going to buy one, it's 10 meters, it's $20,000 like just for one. there would be, I would say, I was sort of trying to count them up as I was driving here. There's probably 1,000 of them up and down the streets here. And I thought, my God, who invested that sort of money? Now that makes sense. Someone's planted them when they're small, and they're probably taken 30, 40, 50 years to grow to that height by look at it. But I think that's what you're telling us.
Yeah.
That's pretty unbelievable. That's pretty unusual. I've never seen anything like that anywhere in Australia when I've travelled this place broad and wide. I've never seen streets lined with those sorts of date palms.
Even just you talking about that, to me, also just that's a really interesting analogy of that, because it reminds me of, a story that I was once told, about legacy and the person that plants a tree is planting it for future generations.
Totally.
Not themselves. And that's...
There's vision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. And not to, not to take away from the fact this is a great wine country too, because you've got the interposition of those palms lining the roads statuesquely. Looking through those palms, they might be spread every 50, 100 metres, you see vineyards everywhere. Obviously, we're in a famous part of Australia and a famous part of South Australia. That's the Barossa Valley, where we produce great wines. Australia produces great wines. So you're looking through there and you see these vineyards everywhere. And then all of a sudden, I see the sign that says CABN, which is your joint. If you don't mind, take me back to a younger Michael. And what was he doing?
The one without grey hair and that doesn't have to wear glasses?
I don't know. Maybe don't go back that far. No, I'm just joking. If you just go back and just tell me, what were you doing?
Yeah. So I was really fortunate, Mark, that I was brought up in a family where we had some rural property ourselves on the Murray River. We had cousins, or have cousins, that had a lot of farmland up in the Flinders Ranges, southern Flinders. So I was brought up, in a really fortunate position where, and I guess it's also my makeup, I could not wait to get out of the city and into the bush, and that included fishing, motorbikes, tractors, mustering sheep, helping out in the shearing yards and sorting, and probably mainly getting in everyone's way. But that was my happy place. And then that, as you get older and you morph into professional life, I stepped away from a lot of that life, spent some time overseas, came back, started a agency which I had for around 20 years, which was fashion, apparel, footwear, sporting industry. And I was in that for quite a long time, and it was really rewarding for a time. But then, there were a couple of quite, almost gradually overnight, these things started to happen, to me on a personal level, where I was certainly no longer enjoying it. No longer fulfilled. I could see, through a whole lot of things that transpired over that time, that I'd really shifted away from the values that my parents brought me up with. And I didn't like the person that I saw, and the decision that I had to make. And I mean, I'm sure you will understand this, but, I had a lot of young kids that worked for me over that period. And, as they're going through different professional phases, they want to leave, or they're, a bit discontent or looking for different avenues. One of my mentors said to me at an early age, either love it or leave it. And that was, one of the principles that he had in life. Either embrace it and fall back in love with it and give it 110, or find something else. And so that, I gave that advice, and I thought it was time to take some of my own advice. And that was, that was a challenging period. But I was also, I was desperately unhappy. There was some periods there where I, it was certainly never diagnosed medically, but I was in, some severe bouts of depression. Pretty confronting at the time when you can't get out of your own way. You don't know, what it is, but the symptoms are all there. And so, you know, I've learned now, and the more that, you know, you talk with people about it, and you're vulnerable and happy to, you know, discuss these things, that the biggest eye opener for me is how many other people have gone through those phases in different stages of life, and that was, I guess, the inflection point for me of, am I going to continue on this path, and what a waste of, you know, a beautiful opportunity that we're given in life, or am I going to find something that is aligned with the values that I was brought up with, that brings together a culmination of all the things that made me truly happy when I was younger, and, you know, there's a bit more detail to it, but that's how CABN was born.
That's very interesting. Do you remember the moment, or was there a moment that you said, that's it, stuff it, I'm out?
Yeah. It was a really distinct set of circumstances. So I guess it was a culmination of a few things, but myself and a couple of friends, you know, I've always had a huge thirst for knowledge and to learn and grow. And so we were heading off to Boston. We'd spent a week over at Harvard Business School doing a advanced leadership course. So we you know, do study trips and you know, learn and explore and have a bit of fun along the way. That particular trip, one of the friends that I was traveling with gave me a book which was called The Minimalists, which was
the Minimalist.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Minimalists.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was two guys who were, you know, Wall Street traders, absolutely cooked, burnt out, were really trying to reconcile with this balance of, you know, loving things, not people, instead of the other way around, where you should love people and use things. Whereas they had this, I guess they'd morphed into this, you know, love things, use people lifestyle. And so that was one of the moments. And, you know, I think timing is everything. So that was, you know, really good timing for me to read that book, and their journey resonated with me, you know, significantly. Then after we'd left Boston, we did some traveling and, you know, went to, you know, a few other places. When we were at Harvard, that was around the same time that there are two graduates that looked at starting a company that was the opposite of a tech startup. So they, you know, everyone's doing a tech startup, and they thought, well, what would it look like if we took
anti-tech?
Exactly. Well, it is. It's the antidote for all the people that are starting the tech companies. And then that inspired me to come back, sketched out the strategy, the business plan, sketched out the first CABN, built the first CABN, or at least got people to help me build it. If I built it, it wouldn't be standing still. And so I guess, Mark, I did it. For me, it was almost a bit of a, I wouldn't say selfish quest, but I just felt I had to do it. I had to build this little cabin in nature that's off-grid without technology and it was almost like, well, I feel like this is going to help me save myself. And of course, you know, with a, you know, background in, you know, entrepreneurialism, business, yes, I was obviously hoping that it would be commercialized, but I had no idea how quickly and how much it would resonate with people. It was mind blowing, which made me think, well, you know, there's really something here and a need for it.
Can you take me back to your very first cabin? Like, where was it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the Adelaide Hills.
Was it like a tiny home? Is that type of thing?
It was, you know, and we've evolved rapidly over that time, but it was a tiny home. It was on wheels. So it was,
you towed it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Towed it in. That was interesting. And something.
Did you have a plot of land though, like, or did you park on someone else's land?
Good mate of mine who has got a beautiful winery in the Adelaide Hills. I pitched it to him and he said sure. And so I've had incredible support along the way as well of people that have helped with the journey and continue to. Which
success is always upon the broad shoulders of others. It's never one only. It's always the broad shoulders of lots of people.
Yes,
and you need those people. Everybody needs those people. So your first. Did you just buy the tiny home from someone? Just go, was one for sale? Do you remember what happened? How you bought it?
Oh yeah. No, look, I remember like it was yesterday, which is quite incredible because it's it's 8 years ago now. But I designed it from scratch, so I think I'm a frustrated designer and
civilian architect.
Yep, with absolutely no skills, but a really really clear idea of what I like and I don't like. And I've always been interested in form. I've always looked at Japanese and Scandinavian architecture. Still do. I really enjoy it. I think it's art. So that was my design. And we wanted to do something that just looked different, that had a real that was really cabin, where you could look at it and say, well, I know who that is. I know who built it. I think we were really successful with that, and that particular design, was heavily featured. We won some awards, design awards for it. And something the very first night we were there, something happened that was really magical.
Did you build it for yourself though? If I might interrupt. Was that for you to stay in, or did you do it as a commercial? Like I'll rent it out.
I did it for a commercial outcome.
Yeah.
I did do it. I started this journey for myself in a very significant way, but I also wanted there to be commercial outcomes.
Yeah, it had to pay its way.
Yeah.
And did you set a budget for this first cabin? Did you sort of say, I don't want it to cost me any more than 50 grand or 25,000 or some number?
Yeah. I had done a lot of work on, costings, and what I can tell you is that building something pre-COVID is very different to building something post-COVID.
About 100% different.
Yeah,
in terms of cost.
Yeah. So I used my own money to invest in it. I got the trades in. We built it from scratch.
Did you bring did you bring the carcass in on a trailer? Did you the frame? Did you bring it, and did you build it on site, or did you bring build the whole thing offsite and drag it in?
We had the chassis and the frame built separately.
Yep.
So we built that, then towed that into the factory, where we then fitted it out,
and then towed it up to the site.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And in what did you do wrong, do you think, what did you improve upon from the very first exercise?
Yeah, we certainly we've learned a lot. I mean, we've made some mistakes. We've constantly, the one of the ethoses of the business from day one, is to improve and always think of the people that are staying here to shape all of our decisions. So, you live and learn, and when you're starting something completely from scratch that had not been done in this segment of the market before, you make a lot of mistakes. But I'd say the biggest changes that we've made from the operational model that we started with, and still staying off grid, would be shifting from what a lot of the other operators do, compostable toilets.
Yeah.
Shifting to a closed septic flushable toilet system, with an enviro cycle, so it's still, doing really good things for the environment that it operates in.
Because where we see now, this is all connected to septic.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and is it a centralised septic, or there's a septic off every one of these cabins?
Centralised. So they all feed into
one septic, one big tank.
Yeah.
So
two, actually.
Two big tanks.
Yeah.
And what about water?
Water's always been a challenge. So we have a combination of collecting rainwater, potable water. So Kangaroo Island is an example. We have to bring in water into that property as well. And then there's also an initiative that we've undertaken up in the Adelaide Hills, which is another first, and we're super proud of, with SA Water, where we're running treated water into the property that's, almost recycled water from one of their plants up into the property, which is quite a good initiative from us. But water's, our most precious resource, and has been a challenge from the outset.
And power. So, because are you that far off grid, or is it solar power, battery storage, or what are we talking about now?
Yeah. Predominantly solar. So we run Victron systems on all the properties. We've, when you talk about learnings, I would say that's been one of our largest learning curves, is getting the power requirements right, and especially when we've evolved so much to, like this cabin that we're in now, which I would call a penthouse suite in nature. We've got they've all got inbuilt saunas.
I saw that. There's a sauna.
Yeah.
Like it's a power. It's electric sauna.
Yes.
It looks like it's using electricity.
Yep.
So we might just describe. I might just describe this one. So this is like, it's around 10 by 3. Would that be about right? Close to 10 by 3. 3 wide, 10 long meters. I'm talking about
14 long, I think.
14 meters.
You're pretty close. That's impressive.
Yeah. So and then what you got at the 14 is probably the extra 3 or 3 and a bit that you got where there's a barbecue area. Then you come in. But the main internal part, we've got a queen size bed. We've got a kitchen just there, cupboards, kitchen, bench, where you can sit down and have your meal. Then on the other side of that is a bathroom with a generous bath, a generous shower, quite generous. It's not pokey, a toilet, of course. On the other side of that, there's a sauna. And then on the other side of that, I'm not sure if it's this side or that side now, but on the other side of that is an outdoor barbecue area, which is pretty cool. And all this is off grid. I mean, I guess the barbecue, if it's gas, it's got gas bottle or something like that.
Yeah.
LPG. And we've got a nice warm, cozy fire here on to my left, which no one can see, but it is nice and warm and cozy, let me tell you. Then it's quite high ceiling, so it gives it a sense of a lot of space. Whilst it's not that wide, it's wide enough, but it gives you a sense of space with the ceiling. I want to talk to you about how you built this materials and all sort of stuff in a second. And external to this, we've got you surround, let's call it a tiny house, but you surround the cabin with a balcony or veranda. There's probably a better way, facing north, I can notice. And so you get catching all the sunlight, which is very clever in the design. It's beautiful sunlight just shining above you. They look you,
and like on you.
You like a halo above you. But I do notice no telly. There's no phone in the room as such, like leading back to a central place there. I guess people got the mobile phones; they can do what they want with that. And sound of nature outside. You open the door; it's fresh air. Today's quite a still day. It's you get the best of everything here. We're sitting here with a bit of a view down towards that way. Down. We're looking northeast. So I think this direction is. Do you have facilities here, or do you not? Is it like a pool or that sort of stuff? What's going on there?
No, we don't. That is something we do have a master plan for this and other sites that have some more stages. So that's just
another stage. Yeah. So how many sites do you have apart from? So you got this one here in the Barossa. What else you got?
We've got the Clare Valley.
Yeah.
Barossa, Adelaide Hills, which is our newest site up in Harndorf. McLaren Vale, Kaipo Forest, which is a really exciting partnership we did with forestry, and then Kangaroo Island.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's quite a few then.
Yeah,
You've done that in 8 years.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. It's been, we have not sat still. We've been, really bold with our growth plans, and it's especially when we do things, as opposed to, that original tiny house model where you pulling a trailer effectively onto a plot of land. Everything we do is, even things that you cleverly have picked up on, like north facing, and there's everything is done with regulatory vigor. So all proper approvals, native vegetation. It's a lot of work.
I can see the landscaping outside. There is a lot of native vegetation. In fact, a lot of it's quite recent. Maybe last 3 or 4 years. Here I'm talking about at Seppelsfield in Barossa.
We only finished this 2 years ago.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Yeah.
But you got beautiful pathways through everything. Everything looks young and fresh to me. I'm big on nature, and I can just see a lot of especially the Australian natives or the native stuff. It's sort of young and fresh, and it looks quite vibrant and new. But at the same time, it's like a teenager. It's big and fluffy, and looks quite interesting to me. Like it nearly looks edible. That's the feeling, the sense I got. It nearly looks edible.
It's awesome.
Bright green, and it's sort of invigorating is probably the best word for me to use. I felt it looked quite invigorating.
Yeah. Well, that's my work here is done because that's exactly what we try to achieve everywhere. Is how can this feel like a big hug?
Yeah,
to all the people that are visiting, and that we're lucky enough to call guests. So that's the design intent that we go through with everything from the cabins all the way through landscaping. The natives we've planted just here alone. I think it's 1,800 natives, and that is again another big commitment that we make to regenerative tourism. And something that we've learnt.
That's a good one. Regenerative tourism. That's an interesting adjective to put in front of the word tourism, because what the tourist or guest is experiencing is the regeneration of the land. So maybe this was, I don't know, what was this before you got here?
So this is
sheep cat.
Probably. Well, this is probably the perfect example of a regenerative tourism project. So this was an existing use site. So it had old cabins on it. We bought this site, and so we thought, what would it look like if we reinvented it and took those regenerative tourism practices into effect? So we, this is when I guess, to go back just a quick step, how we see regenerative tourism and the guiding principles that we use, we've learnt from Indigenous culture and from some First Nations groups that we've worked pretty closely with and continue to
as
work.
In regeneration.
Yeah, as in really, it should start with your intent of how can I leave something better than I found it, and how can I look after it for the next generations. In similar way to the palms that we were just talking about. So that sort of shapes how we, go through a native vegetation planting process, and then the things that we've seen that have evolved from us completely breathing new life into this site is a way more bird life. The boys that stayed here last night would have heard so many birds with heaps of wildlife's come back in, so it's really it's multi-layered. Also, this stops a huge amount of soil erosion. The benefits are pretty far-reaching,
apart from the visual benefits.
Yeah,
of
course.
What a lot of people don't realise is because I've done a few of these projects myself. Not to the extent you have done it, but just linking up all the small forests or small outgrowth. So like you might have a growth of something here, but a big gap, just grass, for example. And then the next lot of growth is down there. The problem is the wildlife that lives in this growth always wants to go down to that wildlife growth down the road, but they don't want to travel over the grass. Snakes, small reptiles, etc., because again, they're picked off by the birds. And actually connecting all these things is really important. They need corridors. And I was noticing how your little areas that looks like they've just been planted, as you said, in the last couple of years, they're all connecting each other.
Yeah.
So you give wildlife the opportunity to make its way from a tree or from the ground or whatever the case may be along the corridors sort of safely, as nature has designed it.
Yeah.
That's proper regeneration. I mean, I did notice that when I first came in here, and I actually got a surprise. And all of a sudden, you're hanging out in this nice, cozy little cabin, and I think it's important, and I notice you have a book here, which we've got our sound system sitting on, but a book here which probably explains to people, or maybe it's important for you to explain to everybody what you would like people to get out of coming here, not just from staying in this cozy little cabin that's nice and warm and all the facilities are here, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you can have a sauna and it's plenty of room to move around, and if you wanted to go on a wine tour and all that sort of stuff. What is it you want them to get out of here, which they may not really realize if they're sitting on that veranda there without someone like you telling them a story, not unlike how the Indigenous elders might tell a story about, something about First Nations, myths and stories. I mean, what would you be wanting to tell? Does your book do that, by the way? What do you want to tell them about it?
I'll show you afterwards, but that's one of the books that we were featured in, with our design of the first cabin.
So outside of the cabin, though, what would you, if I'm sitting there on the balcony, what do you want to tell me about it? Mark, appreciate this. And it's not guiding, but,
Yeah, I think at its core is appreciate nature and all its benefits. And it takes me back to my childhood of, what I resonated with was the joy of play and the joy that you get out of nature. I was driving this week and we've had some rain here, and we stopped at the lights. I was with my family. We saw a little, she would have been 2 or 3 years old girl at the traffic lights, and she was jumping in a puddle. And that brought me so much joy. And we
childlike.
Exactly, because we lose so much of that with, as we evolve through, our generations and, different stresses and different things that come, with age and responsibility. So it's really about creating a space and a place for people to switch off. And primarily that's exactly why we don't offer Wi-Fi and we don't have screens, because that is, they're enablers. And of course, if you need it, everywhere we are within the state, you can get, you can pair your phone to something. But the idea of it is to not do it and to breathe, to listen, to smell, to just stop and slow down. And I still do it myself. And I think it's, it's really important, even last night, just to stand by a fire and that it's those sensory things that really can help hugely with burnout, with taking yourself out of the mindset that, we tend to be in on a day-to-day basis. You don't get that. I'm not knocking motels or hotels. I stay in a lot of them with my travels, that they're fantastic, but it is nowhere near the experience.
But they're functional and practical.
Exactly.
Feed me, let me sleep somewhere, let me have a shower, and then I'll get on about my business.
Yeah,
this is slightly different.
It's a purpose. Our strong purpose is to reconnect people with nature and each other, to get people to rediscover those things, those childlike things, the things that like jumping in the puddle, but also to reconnect, to reconnect with your loved ones or whoever you're traveling with. It's pretty hard to do that when you're watching Netflix as opposed to, sitting here playing a card game or even just the act of cooking a barbecue together. And so they're those quintessential pillars of what cabin is designed to give people that we're super proud of, and I'd love to be able to share some of the stories of the impact that cabin's made on people that have stayed. I mean, it's incredible.
What's the average stay here?
2 nights.
Yeah. It's funny, Michael. It's an interesting thing. I was just thinking of just speaking. Sometimes you only need 2-3 days, 2 nights, and that sort of we use that word recharge ourselves. and you mentioned, and people will say, oh, connecting with nature. But I actually think it's a little bit more than that. I think nature's just an enabler. It allows you to reconnect with yourself. And what I mean by that is like, you said it earlier about reconnecting with your values. I mean, you've made a major reconnection. You've actually turned it into a lifestyle. But just reconnecting with what's important to you, but also reconnecting with your senses. Like if I stood out there now, the sun's shining, and if I just let my senses take over, and maybe even close my eyes, not use my eyes, but listen and feel the air on cold air, hot air, whatever it's summer, winter, doesn't make any difference, but feel it and listen to the things that you've allowed back onto the property. Birds, usually it's bird life. You can hear sounds, maybe the rustle of the trees if there's a slight breeze. Just reconnecting with your senses. I think that's a really important thing, because when we're living in the city or living in that hustle bustle, we're not relying on many senses, usually just our eyes. Usually we're not smelling anything. Rarely do we smell anything. Do we take a moment to think I'm smelling something? You do smell things, but you don't consciously are not aware of it. And I think what just my experience here this morning is giving me, I mean, I do it a lot because I own a farm and I go there all the time. So I do this a lot. But where's your farm? Up at Byron Bay.
Oh, beautiful.
But I put it this way, I appreciate it, is because I appreciate what you're saying, because I do this. I created this 20 odd years ago, mainly because similar to yourself, I needed to do it for myself and for my kids, so that I had somewhere where I could go and what I originally termed as recharging. But what I can say today is reconnecting, and it's about just stop. Have a cup of coffee. If you're going to have a cup of coffee, Mark, walk outside and let the light shine on you, the sun, and look towards the sun, not into the sun, but look towards the sun. Enjoy the morning sun. Appreciate the fact that the sun comes up. We don't do that. Really. Like in the city in Sydney where I live, I'm at work before the sun rises, especially this time of year, June, and I'm at home when the sun's already set. So I don't see any daylight unless I take the time to go to my office, go for a walk. So, but that's fine. I'm not complaining, but I also know that I need to go reset somewhere, and I need to do it at least once every 2 months, or at least around that 6 to 8 week period. Not everyone can afford to have their own property like that, but something like this and all your other venues around South Australia, I think is playing a critical role in allowing us to stop going nuts, crazy as a society.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wish everyone could go every month, every single person in the country. I wish there were enough of these outlets, you and others could set them up all around Australia, that Australia could boast as one of the, because our nature is unbelievable, that Australia could boast as being the #1 country in the world for people reconnecting with nature and reconnecting with themselves at least every 8 weeks. And maybe instead of measuring ourselves by GDP, only by GDP and our inflation number and the interest rate and every other bloody thing, whether we could also do another measurement, a bit like they do in some other Central Asian countries, they do about happiness, but like reconnection, or how do I feel?
Yeah, and Scandinavia,
correct.
Yeah.
How do I, and Japan does it too to some extent.
Yeah.
How do I feel? Do I feel reconnected? I don't mean emotionally. I'm not talking about that like deep-seated emotions. I'm not talking, just physically, can I feel relaxed and connected? And I think that's a big deal.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. When I was listening to you talking about, getting to the office before sun up and leaving after sundown, and then what it's like, which I would say, and, there's not every, I mean, you certainly get it, but, my team and I work extremely hard to deliver this for people. So, not every day's this, but a lot of what we do is just running on adrenaline. It's adrenaline that's getting us through, the day to day. So to be able to come to somewhere like this and something that we're working on as a company, and we've recognised a huge need for it, not just for the individual, but certainly for midweek corporate retreats or for people to recognise where their team might need a reset and to reconnect. To come somewhere like this, I still do it. I'm really maybe I'm not surprised about this or proud of it, but I still find myself, like you do with your farm, finding any excuse I can to get to one of our 6 properties and, to go away for a midweek stay. And I actually find that because of what we've created here, when I'm in a cabin or one of our other products, I think differently. I have I'm a little bit more structured with some of my decisions and outcomes because of less distractions. I think that there's less noise, so I can recalibrate. I actually leave sometimes, and yeah, you can say, well, it shouldn't always be for a work purpose. It should be for something personal and nature based. But I leave so many of these stays myself with some really key decisions that are better for the team and the business, and it's got so many broad-reaching benefits.
Yeah, it's most people, we talk about it in general terms, like we have been, you and I have been today. And again, I was thinking to myself, because I'm really interested in the science of this stuff, and this is not airy-fairy, promotional stuff, what I'm going through and you and I are discussing about today. To me, I think you can actually find a basis in science. If you're running on adrenaline, start again. In order for you to run on adrenaline, in other words, for your adrenal gland to be pumping adrenaline into your system, and for your other parts of your body pumping cortisol into your system, and we keep hearing this about this in the health environment. Generally speaking, you are in that fight or flight mode. So a part of your brain is sending a message down to your various areas of your body, including your adrenal glands, to say to you, based on its senses, what it's seeing. So your eyes are seeing something, or you're feeling something, but just generally speaking, you're seeing something, you're experiencing something. It sends a message to your brain, and your brain then sends a chemical down to a gland, and the gland then says, shit, fight or flight, let's produce cortisol, let's produce adrenaline, and that immediately grabs a whole lot of all the glucose in your system, and it pumps you up, and you go hard. Your eyes light up, you're on, you're actually on. But we're not meant to be that way all the time. We are meant to be that way, but we're also meant to go into rest and digest mode. So we're also meant to, after that happens, stop and slow down and give ourselves a chance to have a slower heartbeat, to breathe less breaths per minute. And, there's a lot of science that tells you how many breaths per minute at rest you should be doing. If you should be doing less than 16, some other number. If you're doing more than 16, it tells you you've got some other issue, perhaps a carbon dioxide issue. But like scientifically, having and mindfulness, all those other things like yoga, breathing exercises, meditation. But the big one is nature and reducing the noise and all the distractions out of your life just for a short period, so that you can actually sleep well. And you can wake up. I use the word right at the beginning, reinvigorated, but basically clear of all the chemistry that's been building up in your brain and the rest of your body over that long period of time you've been putting yourself under these stresses, which, by the way, it's okay. Those things are okay. We do need stresses in our life too. But we also need the opposite, and that's the balance. And I think that what cabins like this, or adventures like this, look at it as an adventure, but an adventure like this, coming to one of these places which is in the middle of a beautiful environment, actually gives an opportunity to appreciate how important it is to us to bring balance back to our life. And as I said, I'm lucky. I own a farm and I can afford to pay for the maintenance of it because you don't make any money out of them. I can afford, but not everyone's in that position. So what I really feel good about in this conversation, Michael, if you don't mind me saying this, is that I know this is a commercial venture for you, but at the same time, it serves an important purpose. And I think we are running these days at such a hectic pace just to compete and to keep, or more importantly, just to keep up with the whole world now. It's not just, me keeping up with Sydney or someone down here keeping up with Adelaide. They're keeping up with everyone in Australia, and they're keeping up with everyone in the world to some extent. We're competing with the world.
Yeah.
And it's never been like this before. It's post-COVID is just, I can't believe the rapid pace that things have happened. And, old Moore's law, which is like, transistors develop and double their speed within, on computers, I'm talking about double the speed in 2 years, whatever it is. I mean, I think that law's been shot to death. I reckon it's where like 2 months, things change so fast here. And just keeping up is bloody impossible nearly. So we do need this. I don't know if maybe you do realise, because maybe I'm just wondering whether you've been out of that city rat race for so long now, you may not have seen it, or maybe because it's a commercial business, you still see it.
No, I do. Yeah, I see it. I travel a bit, and I'm involved in quite a few things. So I do see it, and I think as just listening to what you were saying before about when you escape to your farm, and one of the things that you is a byproduct of staying, whether it's at a cabin or whether it's anywhere regionally, in terms of that rest piece, is, that circadian rhythm that you get into, where it is phenomenal to me that even with all I've learnt and all I know, that I still, when I get to Kangaroo Island, and, it's one of the most beautiful places in the world that we have there at Cape St Albans. But, and that's why we, like the cabin that we're in now, we built these, huge, big skylights for people to be able to stargaze. But you can't even get to stargaze after night 2 or 3, because as soon as it's dark, you're asleep.
Yeah, but that's great.
It is.
That's what's supposed to happen.
Correct. And that's where we're missing that piece. And to your point around, the growth of things and the data that's behind the compounding growth of AI, things like cabin and like you getting away to your farm, my firm view is that will become even more important, because that need for balance and to be able to, you imagine imagine the speed of information that we're all going to be getting. And look, we use it, but there'll never be a more important time for balance moving forward, and also get ready for a lot more burnout.
Well, it's great that South Australia is actually, to be honest with you, is providing that. Because like if you can also not just have this, you can dip into, in the case of this particular cabin venue, the one here in Seppesfield, which is Barossa. You can actually, if you want, you're not going to get bored. You just get outside and go for a drive down the road and go to all the wineries and have a taste and buy a bit of wine, and perhaps go up into the Adelaide Hills later on. There's another hour away, whatever. If you've got time, go up there. There's so many things. Yesterday we interviewed the couple from the Little Rickshaw, which is a great little restaurant. Like, there's unbelievable food in Adelaide, or in this area here of McLaren Vale, with Barossa Valley, the Adelaide Hills. There's restaurants everywhere. Great food, great wine, great venues. And then you can, as you say, for once tap into your circadian rhythms, actually go to sleep when the sun goes down and wake up when the birds start making a noise. Kookaburras, I was just saying earlier,
yes,
kookaburras are my favourite bird in the world, bar none. No, I only ever met one person who's similarly, and I didn't realise it was his favourite bird, but his wife, Delvine, told me it was her husband's favourite bird, and that's John Cornell from the Crocodile Dundee series, who was a mate of mine, but I only found it up after he passed away that he also loved kookaburras. And by the way, we live 200 metres from each other. 200, 300 metres from each other in Byron. That's where his farm's there, my farm's there. We were mates for a long time. And kookaburras to me are so important in my life. It's ridiculous. I actually commissioned someone to paint me one. This kookaburras represent something extraordinarily important to me.
What?
They're the first bird that makes the first noise in the morning.
Yeah.
They go as a flock.
Yeah.
They mate for life. They mate for life. They look after their family. Their ability to interact with us as a community, humans as a community, is incredible. And they also have this, and it goes right back to one of your earlier statements, this childlike manner about them, laughing. Kookaburras laughing is childlike. And it's a bit like...
It's beautiful.
It's like the kid jumping in the puddle.
Yeah.
To me, it's like skipping. I don't mean skipping with a rope. I mean skipping along 50 metres.
Yeah.
We forget about those important connections to being a kid. And all of us are still... I've still got the boy inside of me. I can see you have. And it really, if we sit back for a minute, we have got the kid inside us. And that's why kookaburra is important to me. It's a childlike laughter. I just love it.
That is awesome, mate. Because clearly they've been with us forever. So that would be taking you back to a childhood memory. Every time you hear it.
As a kid, I remember hearing them as a kid.
How cool's that?
And if we talk about our First Nations people, kookaburras or birds generally are extraordinarily important to the First Nations people. In fact, my own whiskey business up here is called The Bird. And, we named that The Bird. We've been a bit cheeky because on one hand we give the bird.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's one of the best labels on a bottle of whiskey I've seen.
But it also is a nod to our First Nations people in Australia, that the importance of a bird to them. And that's why we chose a bird. It's also related to the Bird and Ham Winery here, up in the Adelaide Hills. But it had too many combinations, but birds, childlike, noise, absorbing these things, which I'm getting from talking to you here, right here in your cabin business here, right at this particular, this particular venue. It's incredible. So I want to say to Michael Lamprell, great to meet you first. Wonderful designs, wonderful architecture, great setting, wonderful part of South Australia. Thanks very much for the gentle reminder of what's important in life.
Thanks very much, Mark. Thank you for your time. Thanks for taking the time to come and experience what we're creating here for people. And like I said before, welcome home.
Don't stop.
Thanks, mate.